How we doing today, guys? Another week has gone by. We are back at it again. We are going to start off with the segment This is America, where I just kind of watch a couple of news pieces, usually pulling from one of a couple places, and I offer my perspective on things. Also, it's just, again, as I've said before, it's just me getting informed on things and trying to stay informed on things for my own personal reasons, but working that into this. Because, yeah. One thing I did also want to say, though, is if you don't already, follow me on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, because I do post things there. I guess I don't have my TikTok there. I think I have my TikTok linked on my Twitch or on my Instagram, though. But follow me on those places, because I do make content there as well throughout the week.
And the first thing that we're going to talk about today is we have James Charles back in the news. Of course, he's a massive creator, also a very controversial creator.
I've been hearing a little bit about this.
James is back in the news because he came back from a social media break that he was taking because of another controversy, specifically that one around misconduct allegations with him and minors, to make a video that appears to be him trying to get ahead of a story that's going to come out about other allegations, saying in this video that he felt cornered and that he needed to make another public statement because he feels like he's being blackmailed. And so what's happening here is that there's this lawsuit that he's apparently been dealing with for 2 years from a former employee. They're saying that it's not something that he's talked about himself, right, because of ongoing litigation, but saying that he felt the need to address it because the former employee is talking about it now. Essentially, the way he sets this up is he says he hired her when he first started in LA, first as an editor, then promoting her to a producer with a salary of $72,000 a year, but she was let go after 6 months, and saying that now he is facing a lawsuit.
But it basically alleges that she was wrongfully terminated, overworked, and underpaid, all of which are untrue.
James going on to say that cases like this are common, but rarely make it to court because it's a long and expensive process, so usually people settle, but he refuses to settle. And he says this is because he was recently contacted to give comment for an upcoming article that's about what it was like to work for him, and he says that she is talking to the press and making defamatory and ridiculous comments about him, and adding that he thinks that she is doing this to pressure him into a higher settlement offer.
These claims range everything from I was so lazy, she had to force me to get out of my bed and brush my teeth, and without her I would have never made a single video or a single dollar, but also things much more serious and disgusting, such as that I used to say the N-word around her all the time.
And claiming that the last bit was just kind of perfect timing because there was a Twitter account that he's not used since 2016 that was allegedly hacked, which has been posting tweets with the N-word in. And essentially saying that even though these allegations would go away if he just settled, he doesn't want to.
But contrary to popular belief, I have never, ever paid anybody to speak or to not speak about me, and this will not be the first time that I do it. It just won't.
So he says he has no choice but to pursue this legally, but in the meantime, he has to deal with a court of public opinion, which is why he posted this video, and he said, you know, it's not really on my side right now. And to me, this sounds kind of like James saying, because I'm getting so much heat for accusations involving minors, public opinion is not on my side, more people are going to believe the allegations against me, so I need to get ahead of this. While the specific article in question here has not been released as of recording this video, we do know that the former employee has been allegedly identified in numerous reports as Kelly Rockland. Regarding what she has said about James online, some are pointing to this tweet from April where she said, watching the same people who screwed me over massively end up in deep scandals isn't news to me, it's karmic debt. Also, you have a tweet with she's referencing the lawsuit with James, as well as one she already allegedly won with Erica Costell, saying 1-1 going 2 for 2 because I'm all about law and order. Also, regarding the article coming out, we saw insider reporter Kat Tenbarge, who broke the story about the allegation against Dirty Dom, sharing James's video saying absolutely not, story coming soon, literally cannot believe this. Okay, well, yeah, you paid your creative director $72K after a raise. We'll start there since you're the one putting it out, more soon. Also writing blackmail is a criminal allegation and a really crazy and stupid one to make, though she later deleted those tweets and then said, we're reporting everything out, story will be coming soon. And so yeah, ultimately that is where we are. We're kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, with the other shoe being the insider article. And you know, that's part of the reason why I can't really add an opinion to the end of this story, because we don't fully have it yet. But I mean, kind of to summarize this story, you have someone going, I didn't do it, and we're all kind of...
I don't really feel like there's enough information for me here to comment on this situation, but I can say, based off of, man, James Charles is a complicated situation. So there's been numerous controversies in the past and problematic things in the past, to the point where I think James Charles probably should just take a break for a while. recenter and try and figure some things out. Who among us doesn't have that sort of thing to do? It's tough though, because James Charles also blew up on social media so young and was also preyed on by other content creators, as well as I'm sure some other people personally, and like that creates problematic people dealing with problematic situations. That's not an excuse or justification for anything. It's just to say, like, I feel sympathy and like disgust is too heavy of a word. I feel both sympathy for James Charles and also like, man, bud, you just gotta get out of public eye for a little bit. I feel like you just, I don't know. I think it'd be good.
Going like, wait, you didn't do what? Now I'm interested. What happened now? And so, I mean, actually, part of the story ends up being a little bit of a test case. I mean, was this a good idea to try and get in front of this? Because one, you would have your supporters already kind of maybe on your side, expecting to see something. Maybe they're not blindsided. But at the same time, you've possibly made it so the people that were not going to be aware of this story are now ready and waiting and primed to read that story, actively looking for.
That's true.
We're in this holding pattern, and actually that's the question I have for you. Do you think it was a good idea that James went out and made this video, or do you think that he just made the situation worse for himself? Then we had most relatable woman, 10 years.
Well, that's, I mean, say what you will say about that whole situation of trying to get in front of it. On some level, it is accountability, whether or not it was intended to be. Even if there's dodging going on in that video or minimalization or straight up omission, there is a level of accountability for the situation. I don't know how much credit is warranted for that action. And it's impossible to say really until the dust settles and we have more information and we know what actually happened here. But I think that is something, you know? Coming forward and saying, hey, this is a situation. There are less points for sure for waiting to say something until it was absolutely necessary. But then again, there's the whole, it was an ongoing litigation. Should you really speak about this publicly? Any smart lawyer would tell you obviously not. The last thing you want is public opinion influencing court decisions and adding pressure to a jury or a judge or whatever the fuck. And it's, I don't know. It's, like I said, complicated situation. And especially with this new one, I don't know nearly enough to actually comment.
Study that was published yesterday by the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences that found that air pollution from farms leads to 17,900 deaths in the United States each year. And according to the study, which is notably the first major report to connect air pollution deaths to specific food items, the worst emitter is animal agriculture, which alone composes 80% of deaths from
absolutely, of course
pollution.
it is.
And researchers explain that there are two overarching kinds of pollution associated with manure and animal feed.
The waste mostly.
That can drift hundreds of miles. The first is generated when farmers till or burn crops or when livestock kicks up dust. And the second, less prominent but more problematic pollutant is produced when emissions from farms combine with other gases in the atmosphere like ammonia, which is produced by manure and is incredibly toxic when combined with other pollutants like nitrogen and sulfur compounds. And those emissions add up to make animal agriculture the most deadly by far. With the study finding that it accounts for a total of 12,700
Our air is like mostly
deaths a year,
nitrogen,
which is absolutely huge because it means that these emissions now make up more annual deaths than pollution from coal power plants. But as places like the Washington Post note, while pollution from power plants, factories, and vehicles is restricted under the Clean Air Act, there is less regulation of air quality around farms. Right? And that is very, very notable because while many environmental scientists and advocates have praised this study as a key first...
The meat industry in America, I mean, like any actual vegetarian who's done their research will tell you, it's like, okay. So for a lot of them it is a whole... I value these creatures. These creatures are fellow earthlings. They are companions of this planet. We should treat them with the same respect that we treat each other. And I see that viewpoint. I really do. And I wish, and I'm trying all the time to get a diet closer to that way of life because I do see that viewpoint. But a lot of them will tell you, moreover than that, it's the meat industry, the way they treat the animals, how many of the animals there are. They're like, we're overpopulated, so we've overpopulated several species for the sake of our food. The amount of waste that we produce in general with food, but when you start to account animal lives, it becomes really disgusting. The conditions at these farms and factories for the workers, and the animals, like the animals are not living quality lives. They're literally being abused, and in so many senses of the word. Fuck, it's so fucked. Plus, the towns that live near these animal farms suffer greatly from the product of having thousands of animals in an area very close that are all, going to the bathroom, creating all this stuff, especially pig farms. Seriously, I don't want to gross anyone out, but do some fucking research on pig farms, and that literally has made me like almost stop. Like, I literally almost never, if ever, eat pork. And one, it's because pigs are fucking brilliant creatures. They're amazingly smart, and why? Why are we eating something that's really smart? I know that's such a lame argument because we really shouldn't be eating any of them, but regardless, fucking, it's crazy. It would be different if we were eating them a natural way, but we're not. That's the problem. But yeah, the meat industry is one of the most depressing things in this country.
Step to crafting regulations and laws, major meat industry leaders immediately condemned this step, arguing that it was based on faulty assumptions and claiming that they have not found significant air pollution problems. And while obviously, yes, that would be their response. It's the one that we expect. I think it's very important to note with this story that the meat industry has massive lobbying power, not only in Congress, but also among the public. I mean, just look back, a few weeks ago, you had Fox News lying about Biden banning burgers. You have everyone
that was
flipping
fucking
out on
weird.
this thing that's not happening. So clearly, any kind of regulations are going to hit massive roadblocks. And while the study did find that farmers could cut their air pollution in half by changing certain practices, the biggest power in this situation is ultimately going to lie with consumers. Right? Even as the Post explains, if Americans switch to a flexitarian diet, getting at least half their calories from fruits and vegetables and limiting animal protein to just a few meals per week, air pollution mortality from agriculture would fall 60%.
And there it is.
And if I was a gambling man,
And there it is. If we embraced our omnivorous nature more, it would be better. And if we ate meat a similar way that we used to, it would be better for us. Also, any vegetarian will tell you, meat is hard to process. Like, there are people out there who are always in pain or like have a hard time like digestive wise, and they just eat meat constantly, which is hard to break down. Yeah, you ever talk to a vegetarian or a pescatarian or a vegan and ask them what it's like when they try just a little bit of meat? Their body freaks the fuck out. And it's not because like, it's gotten bad. It's because meat's hard to break down. And when you've given your body a break, it has to go into fucking overdrive just to like get it done. That's fucked. And that not only speaks to how hard it is to actually break down meat, and the fact that we are omnivores, not carnivores. We are not built specifically to break this down. We are built to be able to, but not specifically to. That is a difference. But also, it speaks to like probably the processing of our foods and the way we do things. 'Cause like, no fucking, I can't even, the amount of people in America who are eating fresh meat, very few. I can't even come up with a number, but it's low. It's extremely low. We're all eating processed meat. And to some extent, that's probably healthier than the alternative, but nothing is healthier than fresh. Anything, fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, fresh meat, fresh water, fresh fucking whatever. Like, it's always better fresh.
I'd put more money on, it just has to be a societal change over time. I mean, we're even seeing big business investing more and more money with the understanding that they think that more people are going to go to meat alternatives. But I share that while also not coming for your burgers. Then, in the battle against COVID-19 news, we have the FDA now officially authorizing the Pfizer COVID vaccine for adolescents 12 to 15 years old yesterday, with FDA officials saying in a news briefing following the announcement that the decision was clear and straightforward because clinical trials showed the vaccine was safe for the group, and that we should only talk about the big news that President Biden has ordered the Labor Department to ensure that any American will lose their enhanced federal unemployment benefits if they do not accept what is referred to as a suitable job when offered. Saying in those same remarks that he would direct the agency to work jointly with states to reimpose the requirement that people collecting joblessness benefits must show that they are actively looking for work.
That makes sense, but I really hope the definition of suitable is actually suitable. You know, do they have consistent, reliable transportation to this job? Is it realistic for them to work the schedule they've been offered? Are they truly qualified for the work? You know, like there's lots of things that need to factor into suitable, not just they said, do you want the job? Because you can say no for legitimate reasons. So suitable needs to be looked at carefully, very carefully.
Right. Notably, this comes just days after the latest jobs report showed way fewer positions created than expected, with the Labor Department reporting that just over 260,000 jobs were added last month, even though you had economists predicting that number would be around 1 million. Right, so while things are opening up more and more, Americans are getting vaccinated, some employers have reported that they're having a hard time finding workers. Right, and Republicans have largely argued that this is because of the additional $300 a week in unemployment benefits that Americans are collecting from the last stimulus package. But regarding this, in his address, Biden hit back at that claim, saying that the White House does not see much evidence that benefits have deterred people from taking jobs, which is actually a fact that is supported by numerous studies on pandemic unemployment benefits. And so instead, you had Biden adding that corporate America has to do more to encourage people to come back to work. And that argument is one that we've been seeing Democrats making more and more. If Republicans are so worried that Americans are making more money with an extra $300 a week than they would if they were working, that is an incredibly poor reflection on the state of the American job market. Which is why you saw Biden hitting hard, placing the responsibility on employers, and especially those who have accepted
pay them more
on them to raise their pay, protect their workers from the virus, and help them gain access to vaccination so out-of-work Americans can feel safe going back.
But my expectation is that as our economy comes back, these companies will provide fair wages and safe work environments.
Yes.
And if they do, they'll find plenty of workers. And we're all going to come out of this together better than before.
Well, yes, we have seen some companies starting to do this, like Chipotle, which announced yesterday that it was raising its average wage to $15 an hour to address the labor shortage. It is also very possible that many big companies might just wait it out. And in part, they might feel more comfortable doing that because a growing number of Republican-led states have been rejecting the idea of increased federal unemployment money because of this argument. I mean, just yesterday, you had the governors of Alabama and Mississippi joining Montana.
Fucking where? Like, fucking where? If no one's taking your job offer because you're not offering them enough money, either offer more money or shut the fuck up and close your doors. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Them's the rules. Them's the fucking rules of the free market, homie. Like what the fuck? If we didn't have the reason we have a federal minimum wage is because before we did, there was small businesses everywhere that'd be like, I can't pay much but a meal, or like whatever the fuck, and people would do it and get nowhere forever and end up fucked over. And then we had a bunch of poor people everywhere. So like the federal government had to come in and say, no, you have to give them this much at least. And if you're still only doing that after years of turning a profit, after years of making money, one, you're an asshole. And two, I don't think you get it. Like, that's the whole point, is everyone makes more money. That's how a business grows. Like, what the fuck? Like, you want to preach trickle down, trickle it down. Fuck, you fucking kooks.
Montana, South Carolina, and Arkansas announcing that their states would be leaving the programs by mid-June and that more are likely to follow. So we're essentially kind of in this standoff, right? Whether it be Democrats and Republicans not seeing eye to eye on this issue, as well as corporations or small businesses facing off with their would-be workers. The last thing that we're going to talk about today is the situation between Israel and Palestine escalating. Now, like most things between Israel and its neighbors, the situation is complicated. It builds off of decades of unresolved issues, but what we can say about this most recent bloodshed is that it began because of two situations. The first being what Palestinians describe as Israeli restrictions on religious and cultural practices during Ramadan, and the other involves the looming evictions of Palestinians in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood of eastern Jerusalem. Right, so the religious clashes began about a month ago at the start of Ramadan when Israeli security forces put up barriers to stop people from hanging out at the Damascus Gate, which is a popular spot during Ramadan. The situation was also made worse when Israel imposed a 10,000 person limit on prayers at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is one of Islam's holiest sites. And that 10,000 person limit meant that tens of thousands of Palestinians were turned away or forcibly removed in a series of raids into the mosque and compound, the most recent of which actually caused a massive fire. And all of that led to massive protests, which Israel tried to de-escalate by removing the barriers at the Damascus Gate, although that didn't really help much.
Damage done, dude.
You also had people protesting in Jerusalem over the evictions in Sheikh Jarrah. That neighborhood was built back in the 50s by Jordan when it controlled that part of Jerusalem as part of an agreement with Israel. And part of that agreement was that the families living there would be allowed to keep the homes after 3 years. Now, Jordan eventually lost control of that area, and you fast forward 7 decades, and an Israeli court has ordered Palestinian families in Sheikh Jarrah to leave their homes. That Israeli court agreeing with the accusation that the homes were illegally built on Jewish-owned land and should be returned to Jewish residents, leading to Israeli settlers moving in and effectively stealing homes. Right? Obviously, people getting kicked out of their homes has led to its own massive protests for weeks, and this weekend was no different, leading to many injuries on both sides. Also, of note, this entire situation was supposed to be settled at least legally during a Supreme Court hearing on Monday, but that ended up being postponed to an unknown date, leaving many to feel that this situation will not be resolved, and it just fuels the protests further. Also, in response to all of this, you had Hamas and its territory of the Gaza Strip deciding to issue an ultimatum for Israel to leave the Al-Aqsa Mosque complex and the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood, or that it would launch rockets. When 6 p.m. on Monday rolled around and that had not happened, Hamas decided to launch a massive rocket attack of over 400 rockets into Israel. Now, many rockets reportedly fell short or were stopped by Israel's Iron Dome defense system, but many also found their targets, injuring at least 10 Israelis and killing 2. Israel then responded by conducting airstrikes against Gaza. According to the AP, since sundown Monday, 28 Palestinians, including 10 children and a woman, were killed in Gaza, with the Israeli military saying at least 16 of the dead were militants. Both sides have also continued to bombard the other through the last 36 hours with promises to escalate the situation further. You know, this is still a developing situation. We're waiting to see what happens next, but also this is an incredibly polarizing situation. And I think a great example of that is the reaction to Andrew Yang's tweet yesterday. He wrote, "I'm standing with the people of Israel who are coming under bombardment attacks and condemn the Hamas terrorists. The people of New York City will always stand with our brothers and sisters in Israel who face down terrorism and persevere." Well, yes, you had people supporting Yang saying that, supporting that narrative. You also saw a ton of backlash, with people like Stephanie Weiss tweeting, "As a proud Jewish New Yorker, please fuck all the way off with this vile pandering to right-wing zealots when most Jews are repulsed about what the Israeli government is doing to the Palestinians. This is repugnant, hashtag not in my name." Which actually, on that note, you had people like Ben Bram saying that this is Yang's misguided grab for the Jewish vote of New York. Others also saying, "Mr. Yang, sir, I'm kindly begging you to please get fucked." I mean, you get the point. But
no
also, unfortunately,
shit.
While that debate happens,
This whole thing is a bad
situation. The death toll will rise,
but
the bloodshed will continue to be used as its
the Muslims
own
are being
continue
targeted.
The violence and continue the cycle in the region. Yeah, ultimately with this
which is
story,
not
and
a narrative
also
we are
anything else that stood out to you,
unfamiliar
even if it
with.
wasn't one of the heavier stories today. I'd love to know your thoughts because this brings us to the end of the show. As always,
I mean, I'm not even going to pretend to understand all of the complications and specifics of the Middle Eastern conflict between Israel and Palestine. I know what I know, and I don't know probably a lot. But I can say there's a pattern in this world, and it's odd. It really is odd because Islam is one of the oldest religions, especially out of like the big, like what is it, the big four, big five modern day religions. It's one of the oldest religions, and somehow it is the most targeted. At some point, you know, between, when did it start? 60s, 70s, probably around then. What was the Iranian conflict? Somewhere around then, there was a mischaracterization in a starting to paint the brush of like this boogeyman that was Islamic. And since then, I mean, probably before then, but that I'm aware of, that's when things really started to get bad. I mean, look in China, you can't talk about this very much, on certain applications like TikTok or a couple others. You'll get fucking banned and video erased. But in China, they persecute Muslims. They're literally being put in camps to be like brainwashed out of Islam. And that sounds like a barbaric term, but like that is what they're doing at the end of the day. That is like, I'm not sure exactly what the specifics are. Obviously I don't know, but I know it's happening. There's been Vice stories. There's been a couple other articles. There's countless people trying to speak out against it. And things happen. But so there, you have it there. You have it definitely in Europe. You 1000% have it in America, and even in fucking Israel and Palestine. They were barred off from their area. It all started at the start of Ramadan, their holiday. Like this is an antagonization, and most of the world turns a blind eye to it, and I don't get why. I don't understand why so many people have a hard time looking at a situation that's bad on all ends and acknowledging that. A lot of times people feel like they need to pick a side, like, oh, this person's right, this person's right. Well, sometimes they're both a little right. Sometimes one's more right than the other, but they're both doing awful things or wrong things or going about it the wrong way, and that's not good. And like, I don't fully understand where the justification comes in, the just ultimate justification just because you're right, because that doesn't mean shit. I mean, you can be right and an asshole. I've done it. I don't know. I don't get it. But there is certainly a pattern of discrimination against Muslim people. Without a doubt. I mean, I think most people are pretty aware of that at this point. And that's a pretty, for some reason, deeply ingrained behavior and reaction people seem to have. There's probably a lot that plays into it that I don't think a lot of us understand. But it's honestly, it's so ridiculous. I mean, Islam is such a peaceful religion if you actually read into it. And the ironic thing is, I learned most of that at my Catholic school because we learned a lot about Islam. They're very similar. They trace back to the same tree. Essentially the same story, just different prophets. Same God, for certain. And it's crazy. It is crazy. And I can even think of the mischaracterization at points in my life when it was starting, when it was, forming. It's crazy, but I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to understand the situation. I definitely feel bad for the people of Palestine, especially the people being removed from their homes. Just seems unnecessary, like an unneeded evil being done to people for the sake of power and because opportunity, just because they can and they want to, because fuck you, It feels like both of those actions were taken out of pure fuck you. And why would I ever agree with something like that? I don't want more of that. We don't need more of that. And no one certainly deserves that. So, I don't know what. Siding with Israel in this instance seems like that was a preemptive strike if fucking anything, like that was fucked. Then again, you know, Andrew Yang is not known for his background of diplomacy. He's known for his everyman status. So, you know, there's that. And no one wants to come off as anti-Semitic, so could have even been something as little as that. Someone not thinking and just being like, well, I'm pretty sure this is the right stance to take. Or maybe he read into it a little and he really thought, hell yeah. Hope not. Because that'd be kind of fucked. But whatever. What are we going to do?
First thing that we're going to talk about today is that longtime YouTuber Boogie2988, aka Steven Williams. A lot of people also maybe know him as his Francis character.
I've been watching him forever. That is insane.
Boogie fired what he said was a warning shot with a gun when a man showed up to his home in Arkansas last September.
I do remember this.
There is Frank Hassel, a former YouTuber who was banned from the platform last summer and whose content often focused on harassing people in public. And so Frank was reportedly feuding with Boogie, blaming him for YouTube banning his channel. Boogie had previously said that Frank harassed and threatened him online before stalking him and driving up from another state to show up at his home. As far as the incident,
pretty
Boogie
extreme.
releasing footage after the incident, it shows Frank taunting him to come out with his weapon, as Boogie previously warned that he would do if he actually came to his home.
Come on, you what's the deal?
How's this guy not?
Where's the gun at, you fat
And then you have footage of Frank filmed showing Boogie warning that he was going to fire the gun, then actually doing it.
Is this what I have to do?
You fat Oh my God! Is this real? Yes. Is this guy gonna kill me?
Yes. He's here to look at the air conditioner, Sam. Is this what I have to do? Is this what I have to do?
Are you gonna shoot me in your doorway?
Yes.
You're deranged.
I'm asking you to leave. This is my home. You are not welcome here. You have threatened my life. I'm asking you to leave. In about 30 seconds, I'm gonna fire a warning shot.
Fire it now! Fire the warning shot now.
And actually, I'm not going to be able to show the rest of the video here because I think YouTube's going to use it as a reason to suppress or crack down on this video. But what we end up seeing in the video is Boogie actually firing what he refers to as a warning shot in the air. And again, saying, is this what we have to do? I'm asking you to leave. But then, last Friday, we learned that a warrant for aggravated...
You cannot fire a gun randomly into the air. Bullets come back down to earth. What? Dude, if you're gonna fire a warning shot, shoot it into the ground. Holy shit. Holy shit.
assault was ultimately issued against Boogie. We also started seeing rumors that he might be arrested soon. Around that time, he tweeted, "Thank you and anyone for support in this situation, though. I'm going to do the right thing and do it by the book. Glad to cooperate with authorities. Heading home today to do so." Now, in court documents obtained by local news outlets, you have prosecutors saying Boogie knowingly and under circumstances manifesting extreme indifference to the value of human life purposely displays a firearm in such a manner that creates a substantial danger of death or serious physical injury, and adding that when he fired it, he was in a residential neighborhood, thereby manifesting an extreme indifference to the value of human life and creating a substantial danger of death of
I don't understand. I don't understand. By this same logic, anyone who fires a gun at anyone who breaks into their house in a residential neighborhood, assuming you live in a residential neighborhood like every other person in America, you would be showing indifference to the value of human life. I don't understand. Like, it was definitely reckless behavior, firing a gun straight up in the air. And, like, I just don't know that I agree with the wording of the charges.
Physical injury against the peace and dignity of the state of Arkansas. And so for now, we kind of just have to wait and see how this plays out. Boogie has been released on $5,000 bail. Also, if he ends up getting convicted, he faces up to 6 years in prison. And with everything going on here, I'd love to know your thoughts on this. Now that Steven Williams has been charged, what do you think should happen? Do you see this as justice being served, accountability, this should happen and he should face some sort of penalty? Or are you on the other side, that he did nothing wrong? He was someone that was being harassed and stalked.
He did something wrong. He was being harassed and stalked. There needs to be some sort of accountability here. You can't fire a gun into the fucking air for no reason in a populated area. That bullet's going to come down. It's going to probably hit something, possibly someone. Yeah. So that is reckless gun ownership right there. But I feel like his actions I don't know if the charge would be the same if he shot it in the air. Like, in my opinion, if he would have walked outside and shot it straight into the ground, I wouldn't have seen that as a problem. I would have seen that as someone being like, dude, I do not want you on my house. I've told you several times to leave. I've warned you that I will use force if you show up because I fear for my safety. And then he did. I feel like there was a lot of fair warnings given, you know? Like, also this dude drove across a couple states or a state to get to this dude's house. That's weird. That shows weird intention. It does, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't explicitly say that, like, he shot a gun in the air and that's what made it dangerous. It just says that he shot a gun, which is why I'm like, what the fuck? People shoot guns in their house all the time to defend themselves, rightfully or wrongfully. And a lot of them never get in trouble with something like that. That's why I'm like, what are these, what is the phrasing of this charge?
He made maybe a poor decision, and he was just defending himself to make sure that he wasn't continually harassed in the future.
Yeah.
I'd really love to know your thoughts there. One, because it's an interesting story in its own right, but also two, it feels like a story like this has been a long time coming. I mean, how many times just on this show have we had to cover YouTubers saying, don't come to my home?
Stop coming here, please. I don't want to have to move.
Don't show up to my house, please, don't.
I don't know who you are, but I know that you found my address online and thought, hey, I'm gonna invite myself over. From my perspective, that's just insane.
Please, don't come to my house.
When it comes to my own house, that's a breach of privacy.
I don't understand, because if I was a fan of somebody, I really would not show up at their house.
Please don't come to our house. Just please don't do it. There are so many other ways that you can connect with us that are appropriate and not, I don't know, wrong.
Also, for those who have been watching me for a while, I mean, just with the stuff I've shared, you know that I've had to deal with stuff where I've had to boost security in the past. Hell, I mean, there's even a story, I don't want to mention them by name because I get worried that they're going to have to deal with more harassment, but I mean, someone was actually stalked and the person ended up being killed by police. Well, there's numerous and different reasons that these people are showing up to these homes, all the way from, you know, socially unaware fan to I'm stalking and or harassing you or I'm going to do something bad to you. It keeps happening, and based off of the history that we've seen with mainstream celebrities having to deal with their own sort of stuff, I really don't see an end in sight. But yeah, that's the story, some of my thoughts on it, and of course I pass the question off to you here. And then let's talk about a story that starts with the incredibly sad and disturbing fact that the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission had to tweet out from their verified account this morning, do not fill plastic bags with gasoline.
Yeah, where did that come from?
And here's what I'll say. I don't know if this is actually
obviously
happening.
It's going to eat through it.
Now, there are pictures and videos going around, but actually a lot of those are just being miscaptioned. But like this video is from 2019. It's not connected to this situation, and this one is also from 2019, and it's actually from Mexico. But that said, I don't doubt that people are actually doing it, especially because people are sharing these gasoline things, and then other people might be like, oh, that's a good idea. But yeah, it appears that this is connected to, you know how earlier this week we talked.
Gasoline will eat through a plastic bag in not that long of a time, and then you just have a gasoline soaked fucking wherever you had it. Oh my god. And then the pipeline.
About how the country's largest fuel pipeline was forced to shut down last Friday following a ransomware attack, right? That being Colonial Pipeline, which stretches from Texas to New York and supplies 45% of the East Coast fuel. Well, since we last talked, the governors of Florida, Virginia, North Carolina, and Georgia have all declared states of emergency to try to stave off shortages and keep gas prices down. However, with the pipeline now well into its 6th day of being mostly shut down, we've started seeing panic buying, and that panic buying has caused the national price average to finally break $3, which notably is the highest national average that we've had in 7 years. You know, if you've looked on social media, miscaptioned photos and videos aside, there are a ton showing how bad the situation is on the East Coast right now. With some people reportedly waiting as long as 5 hours to get gas, others also unintentionally making the situation worse, right? Panic buying, trying to top off mostly full tanks. We're also seeing a number of situations where tensions are running high, the situations are escalating. The first one that comes to mind is this one that was shared by a reporter this morning. It shows a woman trying to cut line, but when she couldn't, she gets out of her car, she hits another, then she spits on a man who then spits back at her, leading to a fight between the two. So with all of that, you had over 1,000 gas stations in the Southeast running dry yesterday evening. With places like North Carolina having 8.5% of their stations out of gas, Virginia 7.7%. Also, wow, more than 20% of the stations were out of gas in the Atlanta metro area. Now, as of this morning, the problem has only grown. In fact, right, North Carolina, now nearly a quarter of all stations are out of gas, and that number even hit a whopping 71% in urban areas like Charlotte. And so when you put all of this together, that's why I have some analysts calling this a self-fulfilling prophecy, which I think to a certain degree.
I mean, that makes sense, but oh my god, I didn't realize we were close to like the gas crisis in the 70s over there on the East Coast. That is fucking insane. And again, it's the same problem we ran into with the toilet paper at the beginning of the pandemic, where people are just panic overbuying unrealistic portions of substances or goods to hold them over the fucking nuclear winter, I guess they think is coming. What the fuck? She spit in his face. I can't believe he just spit back, dude. Like, ooh, spit is so gross. If someone spit in my face, I don't know what would happen. I would definitely make a fool of myself. But I would be angry.
Is accurate. I mean, it's part of the reason why I even struggled this morning figuring out if it made sense to cover this story. It's a big national story. It's affecting everyday people's lives. It's an update to an incredibly important story we covered earlier this week, but there's this bigger thing about just security in general. But, you know, I don't think it's ridiculous to think that letting people know that there might be a shortage because people are scared there's going to be a shortage and so they're hoarding and so now others are hoarding.
Jesus
it's
Christ.
The paper panic that we had a year ago.
That's literally what I said!
But, I mean, that's part of the reason why anytime you cover this...
That's literally what I said. It's the toilet paper pan. Yes, dude. Yes, dude. I fucking love this man. Yes. Also, real quick, I learned yesterday I got my second vaccine the same day as Hassan Abi, so fucking shout outs to him. That's a fucking poggers, pod camp. Just wanted to bring that up real quick because it made me happy.
Story, you have a lot of people saying, you know, please don't go out, don't hoard gasoline, please only fuel up if you absolutely need to. But then people are still going to have that voice in the back of their head going, well, at least 50% of people aren't going to listen to that instruction. We're going to have
even
to
more
see
reason
how
to
that
listen
pans
to
out.
it.
But as far as when we will get the pipeline back, Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm told reporters yesterday that Colonial should be able to make a decision on restarting operations by the end of today. Though, keep in mind, it is likely going to take several days for fuel supplies to return to a normal level after operations recover. So you have Colonial Pipeline officials saying they hope to restore service by the end of the week. But from that, I want